10 years ago, you put your work on Behance or Artstation, and if you were good, clients came to you. That was the system. Today, you can have better work than ever and still get zero inbound inquiries. That's not a talent problem, that's a market shift. Let's be honest, the market is not going to magically get better. Since COVID, the global economy has taken hit after hit. Multiple conflicts, supply chain disruptions, inflation, energy costs. And this is not a creative industry problem. Most industries struggle right now, and that is exactly why we as 3D artists struggle, because our clients struggle. Their budgets are tighter, their decisions take longer. They are under pressure to justify every expense. So when a marketing director used to have a budget for a full CGI campaign, now they're fighting to keep their team. When a project manager used to invest in premium visuals because it was nice to have, now they need to prove it drives revenue before they sign off. The money hasn't really disappeared. The willingness to spend it without proof has. So some artists get frustrated, blame the market, say the industry is dead, and some even leave 3D entirely. But leaving doesn't really solve anything. If you switch, all you do is reset your career to almost zero, and the same economic pressure exists everywhere. The market is hard everywhere. The question is whether you're willing to do what most people in your industry won't do. Because when you do the work that most artists won't do, you end up in a world with less competition. Most artists are not really willing to learn outreach. They want the work to speak for itself. And when everyone is waiting for inbound, the person who goes outbound has almost no competition. The barrier is not talent. It's not software. The barrier is willingness. And that unwillingness in others is your opportunity. Now you might think, so what am I supposed to do? Just keep sending messages into the void? No. You're supposed to send the right messages to the right people. And that requires something most 3D artists have never spent a single hour on: business skills. Here's where most outreach fails. An artist decides to start doing outreach. They find some companies on LinkedIn or Instagram, and they send a message that says something like this. Hi, I'm a 3D visualization artist with 8 years of experience. I specialize in product visualization and CGI. I'd love to work with your company. Here's a link to my portfolio. Then they copy that message, paste it into 30 different DMs, change the company name, hit send, and wait. They get maybe one reply, it's a no. And then they stop. They conclude that outreach doesn't work. But let's break down what actually happened. That message put the entire burden on the client. The client has to read it, figure out what 3D visualization is, how it applies to their situation, imagine the result, assess whether it's worth the investment, and then decide whether to respond. That's not a cold email, that's homework. And you send it to someone who has 47 other messages in their inbox, 15 things on their to-do list, and hiring a 3D artist is not even on it. Of course, they did not reply. Now there are two approaches to outreach: volume and quality. We'll go deep on both in a minute, but first you need to understand something that applies to both. Whatever approach you choose, you need enough messages before you can judge whether it's working. You need at least 100 to 300 messages before you have enough data to know whether your approach works. Below that, you're just reading noise. One reply or 0 replies out of 20 tells you nothing. It could be luck, timing, the wrong companies, or your message. You don't know yet. So if your message is bad and you send it to 200 companies, you just burn 200 prospects, learning a lesson you could have learned before sending a single message. This is why research matters before you start. You figure out what the client's business problem is. You craft a message that speaks to it, and only then do you start sending. Otherwise, you waste your best prospects on your worst messages. Now, what does a good message actually look like? I'm not going to give you a template to copy because a copied message is just another generic message. Instead, here are the principles. A good message leads with the client, not with you. It shows you looked at their company and identified a specific gap between the quality of what they do and how they present it. It frames that gap as a business problem, not an aesthetic problem. It speaks their language, not 3D jargon. And it asks for a low commitment next step, not a yes or no to working together. That's the framework. The specific words depend on the niche and company. and the person you're writing to. But every message that gets replies follows these principles. So how do you understand the business problem your craft solves? Because this is where most 3D artists hit a wall. They've spent 10,000 hours learning software, rendering, lighting, composition, and exactly 0 hours learning how businesses make buying decisions. Here's what you actually need to understand. Not the industry jargon, not how their product works mechanically. 3 things. What is this product or service for? Who is the audience that needs to be convinced? And what decision is this visual supposed to support? That's it. When you know the answer to those 3 questions, you can frame your entire outreach around the outcome. You're not selling 3D rendering. You're selling the thing the rendering achieves. And that's a business conversation, not a creative one. Now, when it comes to actually sending, let's break down those 2 approaches. The first is volume. You send to hundreds of companies. The benefit of volume is scalability. You can automate the sending. You can reach a lot of prospects quickly. But the trade-off is reply rate. Because your message is less specific, fewer people respond. Even so, volume has a minimum quality requirement. You're not sending the same generic "I'm a 3D artist" message to everyone. Your message still needs to be relevant to the niche you're targeting. It's copy-paste, but it's relevant copy-paste. That's the minimum bar. Below that, volume doesn't work. You're just spamming. The second approach is quality. You send to 20 companies, but each message is specific. You looked at their website. You found their exact gap. You wrote a message that could only be for them. This takes, of course, way more time per message, but the reply rate is dramatically higher. 20 well-researched outreaches can match the result of 200 generic ones. What I recommend is a hybrid. Start with quality, send 20 highly specific messages to test your approach. See what gets replies, what doesn't, what language resonates. Once you know your message works, scale to volume with a niche-relevant version of that same message. You take what you learned from the quality approach and apply it at scale. That way, you're not burning hundreds of prospects on an untested message. You validate first, then scale. Both approaches still require relevance. Neither works without it, and both require enough volume to generate data. Even with the quality approach, you'll cycle through several batches of 20 before you have enough replies to know what's working. So here's the process. Step 1. Research. Before you write a single message, understand the niche you're targeting. What business problem does your craft solve for them? What language do they use? What decision is the visual supposed to support? This is the homework. Step 2. Choose your approach. Quality, volume, or the hybrid. If you're not sure, start with the quality to validate. Then scale to volume once you know your message works. Step 3. Build your list. Industry directories, LinkedIn searches for specific roles at specific types of companies, marketing directors at a real estate developer, head of e-commerce at a consumer brand, communications lead at a tech startup. These roughly are your people. They have the problem and they have the budget. Step 4. Write your message using the principles. Leads with them, not you. Identifies the gap. Frames it as a business problem. Asks for a low commitment next step. Step 5. Follow up. The first message rarely gets the reply. Decision makers are busy. They saw it, they meant to reply, they got distracted. A follow-up after 4 or 5 days is the difference between a conversation and a ghost. You follow up once, maybe twice, or even 3 times. Then you move on, but you always follow up. Now let's be honest, this is harder than posting on Behance and waiting. It requires research, thinking about someone else's business, writing relevant messages, following up, handling rejection without quitting. These are business skills, and they are the exact skills that separate the artists who are thriving right now from the ones who are struggling. Not better renders, not better portfolios, business skills. And when you do this, you find better clients, not the ones shopping for the cheapest 3D artists. Clients who have never hired a 3D artist before, maybe. Clients who compare your work to the business outcome it creates, not what another freelancer charged. Those clients exist, but they don't find you, you find them. So the simple version. The market has changed because the clients changed, because the economy changed. It's not going back. Generic outreach doesn't work. What works is understanding your client's business problem, doing your homework before you send, choosing your approach, and following up. Treat your freelance career like what it actually is, a business, because nobody is coming to save you. The market is not going to fix itself, but the clients who need you are out there. They just don't know you exist yet. If you understand that running a 3D freelance business is more than just being a good artist, you should join our free community. Link will be down below.